After a 2-month hiatus and just in time for the NFL draft, we are back here on the NFC West Huddle. Our look around the division with the experts from the other teams in the division. I'm Aaron Levine in Seattle, joined by Richard Sines in Phoenix and Frank Malacote in San Francisco. Our friends in Los Angeles decided to be just as secretive as the teams are in their respective war rooms. So we are getting zero insight from the Rams' perspective, which is fine because they are just an afterthought anyway. Only the reigning divisional champs. But I digress. Great to see you two, and it's time to get started. Our first topic of the week. What is the biggest priority for your team in the NFL draft? Frank, we're going to start with the last place team first. What do the Niners need right now?
Ooh. Boy, shot across the bow right out of the gate, Aaron. Nice. Hey, well, when you're 6-11, man, you need everything, baby. And you know what? 49ers are going to have to do a lot of shopping. They got 11 picks, and they got to get younger because they had a lot of big-dollar contracts. They unloaded a lot of guys, and they got this guy named Brock Purdy who's hopefully going to sign here before training camp, but they're going back and forth with that, and that's probably $50 million plus. Who did they get rid of? Well, on offense, Deebo Samuel is the biggie, of course. They're Mr. Everything running back and wide receiver. He is gone. He got traded to Washington. Aaron Banks, also an offensive lineman. The defense really got ravaged thanks to free agency and just cutting players. Dre Greenlaw didn't play but a half a game last year. He got hurt during the Super Bowl, but he had 11 tackles in that half a game. He is gone. He was a free agent. He signs with Denver. Charvarius Ward, nice lockdown corner, played very well in the last few years, but he has gone to the Colts. Talanoa Hufanga, the safety, he's gone. And then you got Javon Hargrave at Tampa Bay, Leonard Floyd, he's on his way to Atlanta. So what do they need? They're going to need to retool that defense a little bit. And I think they're going to have to give Nick Bosa someone to help him rush the quarterback. Nick was double team and triple team last year. Although he had a good year, it was hard to get sacked. So I think they will be shopping for that. They have 9 defensive linemen right now on their roster. You will need a scorecard for 8 of those. They're not household names outside of Nick Bosa. So my guess is they're going to go into the draft. They're going to look for an edge rusher, a defensive lineman that can give the quarterback fits. They are drafting at number 11. And from what everyone tells me and from what you can see, this draft is really rich in defensive linemen. So they can find a game changer at number 11. I think that's where they're going to go.
Nick Bosa once again saying, make the Niners defense great again. Richard, the Cardinals, 8-9 last season. It came down to the last few weeks last year. So what is their biggest priority in the draft?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, hey, I missed you guys. It's good to see you guys again. I feel like it's the first day of school. We're like, hey, how's your mom and them? How was the summer and all that? So it's great to see you guys. And, I was wondering why L.A. didn't have a representative. Then you said, we're going to check in with the experts. I said, oh, no wonder, because they don't have an expert. That's why they're not. Or they're just big time at us because they're the champs. And it's that L.A. personality, right? So I had to dog L.A. a little bit before I really answered your question, right? It's obvious what the Cardinals need, right? They need D-line. They need help to stop the run. They also need help putting pressure on the quarterback. So D-line and edge rusher is the need for the Arizona Cardinals. It was a need during the season, and it's been, somewhat addressed in the offseason. They go out and get a blast from the past, and Calais Campbell, a guy that was drafted by the Cardinals. It brings back good memories. He was on that team that went to the Super Bowl back in 2008, 2009. So it's pretty cool to see him back. They went and got Josh Sweat, who looked fantastic in the Super Bowl for the Eagles, all over Patrick Mahomes. That's the kind of guy you want, right? A guy that can get to the quarterback. They also got Dalvin Tomlinson, in free agency as well. He's a guy that can clog the middle. They did lose some guys. They lost Roy Lopez, who was kind of a spark plug for them on that D-line. He's going to the Lions, so we'll see how he does. He was a local boy, a fan favorite here, so a lot of people were kind of bummed to see him. But definitely D-line and edge rusher, that's what they need. They like I said, they've kind of addressed it in the offseason. I think they'll do the same in this year's draft. You can never have too many guys that can get to the quarterback. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Arizona Cardinals do in the upcoming draft. That's for sure.
And Richard, I missed both of you guys. I missed your burn book even more, and I know that it's handy somewhere. You're going to bring it out at some point.
You missed this right here?
Yeah, there you go.
Is this what you missed?
We call it the burn book.
It's back,
right?
and it's
straight
better
out
than
of Mean
ever.
Girls. Yes.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear what you
I still
put
look
in
like
it.
I haven't slept in a while, but yeah, straight out of Mean Girls.
Fantastic. Meanwhile, listen, there's no question the Seahawks' priority needs to be on their offensive line. It's the one major thing that's been lacking during the free agent period. They swung and missed on Will Fries, who they wanted to get a physical for. Instead, he opted to go straight to the Vikings with no physical. None of the other guys have worked out so far, so offensive line has to be a priority. The Seahawks have been in the bottom 5 in rushing yards the last 3 seasons, including last year. They also gave up the 3rd most sacks. So that has been the Achilles heel for this team for a number of years. They need to win the line of scrimmage. That's top priority next season. Then again, the Seahawks have 5 picks in the first 3 rounds of this year's draft, 3 picks in the first 52. So this is a draft where they could really do some damage. And dare I say, it's also an opportunity to try and find a quarterback of the future. I mean, just in case Sam Darnold doesn't work out, John Schneider, he's only drafted 2 quarterbacks in 15 years, Russell Wilson and then this 7th rounder named Alex Magoo that nobody remembers. Right now, they've got Drew Lock and Sam Howell on their roster behind Darnold. Neither of those 2 guys are going to be here long term. They have not hamstrung themselves with the Darnold contract either, so I would not be surprised if they took a QB. Next question. What should your team do in the first round of the draft, and what will they end up doing in the first round? We will go with Richard first this time. The Cardinals have the 16th overall pick. What do they do with that?
Well, first of all, I'm just so glad that you mentioned the quarterback situation because I had it in my diary. I wrote, God, I hope they bring up the quarterback because Geno's not that guy. Sam Darnold's really not that guy. I wrote it in here. Sam Darnold is definitely not that guy.
Oh, here we go. Can't wait.
And I do remember Mr. Magoo. Wasn't he the guy that couldn't see? That was always getting lost. I never knew he was a Seattle Seahawk.
Believe
Mr.
it or
Magoo
not.
was one of my favorites.
Cartoon character
Yeah.
too. Fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, I love that guy. But anyway, back to your original question, right? What are the Cardinals going to do? It's funny that the GM, Monty Ossenfort, and head coach Jonathan Gannon just had a press conference a couple days ago talking about their draft philosophy. And I got to admit, I'm impressed because it aligns a lot with the Chimichangas philosophy, my fantasy football team, and what we do in our draft, right? We go with best player available, good character guys, team captains, guys that are team leaders. That's why the Chimichangas have been a dynasty in my fantasy football league, the Boob Tubers, for quite some time now. But anyway, so I think what the Cardinals do, if they don't trade down, which was what GM Monty Ossenfort likes to do, is to acquire picks because it makes sense, right? The more picks you have, the more chances you have to hit on somebody. It's like the more times you play the lottery, the more times you're going to win. But if they don't trade down and they stay at number 16, as I mentioned, they need D-line help. They need pressure on the quarterback help. So Mikael Williams, the kid out of Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs are like a semi-pro team anyway, right? So why not draft any of those guys if you can? There's also a D tackle out of Oregon, Derek Harmon, who can clog up the middle. If Calais Campbell doesn't work out, he is going into year 18. He can't play all the snaps. He can give you a good quality 35, 40 snaps, but you need a guy, an apprentice of sorts, to kind of start to groom to fill that role. So I think those are 2 names that could be called by the Cardinals come Thursday.
We'll keep an eye on that, and I can't wait for our fantasy draft preview in a few months and see who the Chimichangas ended up taking after they lost in the Super Bowl last year, so according to you. So I apologize for that.
Why are you bringing up old stuff?
Well, you know what? Got to move forward. You're absolutely right. Speaking of which, I'll go next here. The Seahawks with the 18th overall pick. In 15 years, John Schneider has never traded up with his first-round pick. I do not think this is the year they will do that either. Listen, I'm going to stay with the offensive line being a priority and getting a guy here in the first round. Schneider has drafted 4 O-linemen in the first round. Russell Okung at 5 overall, Charles Cross at 9, James Carpenter at 25, and Jermaine Ifedi at 31. That is a mixed bag, but I feel like if you have the 18th pick, you should be able to get a bona fide impact starter on the O-line. That's what you need right now, so that's what they should do. What will they do? Well, there's a lot of chatter about them taking one of the top tight ends available, from Colston Loveland from Michigan to Tyler Warren from Penn State. If either of them are there at 18, I wouldn't be surprised if they pull the trigger on either of those guys. I wouldn't be completely disappointed with either of those. It's still helping your O-line to a degree. And if you pair him with A.J. Barner, I think the Hawks would then have two of the best young tight ends in the game. I would be surprised, though, if it wasn't either an offensive lineman or a tight end in the first round. Frank, the Niners have the 11th overall pick. What should they do, and what will they do?
Hey, for extra credit, who was the voice of Mr. Magoo? Do you guys know?
I don't, and it's a trivia question, and I'm going to have to make a card for it.
Frank Malaport.
No, it was Jim Backus, Thurston Howell III. There you go, from Gilligan's Island. Just a little bit of trivia here from the Bay Area.
You learn something every day.
Well, there you go. Well, one would think, being an offensive-minded genius, that Kyle Shanahan would lean towards the offense over the defense. But in his 8 years, I did a deep dive, his first-round picks, although in 23 and 22 he only had a second and a third. He didn't have a first. But 5 out of those 8 times he has gone with a defensive player. Ricky Pearsall was number 1 overall last year. Jair Brown, Drake Jackson, Trey Lance, Javon Kinlaw, Nick Bosa, Mike McClinchy, and Solomon Thomas. So, as you said up there in Seattle, a bit of a mixed bag there, a couple of winners and a couple of duds. So, I have a feeling he's going to go defensive. I mentioned this earlier. I think they need someone, an edge rusher, someone to kind of bookend up with Bosa. Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, he's 270 pounds, 6'5", and he ran, get this, a 4.59 in the 40, which is ridiculous at that size. Very athletic. A bit of a project, though. He only had 4.5 sacks in his 3 seasons at A&M, but he might be a guy they're looking at. Walter Nolan, defensive tackle. He's out of Ole Miss. They say he's Warren Sapp-like, just an animal that gets to the quarterback, 295 pounds. But I'm told he's a bit of a freelancer, doesn't always stick to the script, so he may be a long shot. But as a lot of people say, go with the best man available. They lost Charvarius Ward to the Colts, so they do need a nice defensive back, a good corner. And Will Johnson out of Michigan, if he's available, he had 9 picks with the Wolverines, 6'2", he's very quick, had a couple of pick sixes last year with Michigan as well. So if they need some secondary help, and they do, and he's available, but I have a feeling he may be picked prior to that. The Niners had 11 interceptions last year as a defense, and that's number 19 overall, so they need to improve there. But as you said, Aaron, for all I know, it could be an offensive lineman. You just don't know.
Yeah, total mixed bag there, and we look forward to seeing how the first-rounders do for each of you guys. By the way, the Rams picked 26th. Hopefully they will take someone that will be out of football in a couple of years. Next up, now that we have an early idea of how the 2023 and 2024 drafts panned out, give your team a grade for how well they've drafted the last couple of seasons. I'll go first here. I think the Seahawks get an A-. They get a solid A for their first-round picks the last 2 years, from Devin Witherspoon to Jackson Smith-Njigba and Byron Murphy. All 3 of these guys have been fantastic. They're players you build a franchise around. And frankly, Tyrese Knight as a 4th-round pick last year has been a nice surprise. So is A.J. Barner. Derek Hall is coming into his own as well. The big question in Seattle will be, can they get the maximum potential out of the offensive linemen they have taken the last 2 years? You got Christian Haynes in the 3rd round, Anthony Bradford in the 4th round, Oluwatimi in the 5th round, Satoa Lomea in the 6th round. Can a couple of these guys develop and become bona fide and impact starters? And if they can, I would move that A- to a solid A. Frank, you're next. How have the Niners done the last couple of drafts? Give them a letter grade.
All right, letter grade. Last year, I'm going to give them a solid B+ and maybe an A- because so many injuries last year. A lot of these rookies had to play out of the gate. Ricky Pearsall had a bad hamstring, number 1 pick, number 31 overall. So he didn't get a lot of training camp, and in late August got shot, sadly, in San Francisco. So he had to sit out the first 6 or 7 games while he was healing up. Slow starter, but I got to tell you, the last couple of games, he really came on strong. So they're expecting big things from him. Renardo Green, I'm going to give him a B+ A as well, A-. He had some spot starting as a defensive back, cornerback, and he played pretty well. Dominic Pooney out of Kansas, lineman, started all 17 games, locked and loaded, came in and played. He's a stud. Malik Mustafa, safety out of Wake Forest, hard hitter, Ronnie Lott-like. He had a few starts as well, played well against Seattle, as I recall. And then you got Isaac Garindo, running back out of Louisville, who had, I think, about a 70-yard gallop before he plopped on the 2-yard line up in Seattle.
Thank you very much, Frank.
I don't want to remind. No, but I think this is a kid that's just he may break out. We'll see, but they need a little help at running back. The year before that is a draft. I went through everybody, and there's only 3 that really come to mind, and one of them, sadly, is Jake Moody, who really had an awful year last year after a pretty good freshman season with the 49ers, and they used a 3rd-round pick on him, number 99 overall. Dee Winters, right now, a workable linebacker, still. I'll give him an incomplete. And Jair Brown started 13 games as a defensive back out of Penn State. He played pretty well. The rest are kind of scattered around the NFL and no-namers at best. So I'm going to give them a C for that season. And if you go back a year, I know you said 2, but that's Mr. Irrelevant, and that's when they picked up, on a lark, they picked up Brock Purdy, which really saved Mr. Shanahan and Mr. Lynch's job, probably, because that Trey Lance pick, number 1 overall the year before, was just a killer. They would be without a quarterback right now, but since Purdy stepped up, that's kind of where they sit. So we'll go back, give them an A-, a C, and I'm going to give them a B+ only because of Purdy the year before.
Yeah, Brock Purdy, the only Mr. Irrelevant who's actually turned out to be somewhat relevant for their team in NFL draft history. Richard, how about the Cardinals? What grade did they get for the last couple drafts?
I say A. A for awesome. Giamatti Ossenfort has only been with the Cardinals for 2 years, so these last 2 drafts are his. And his first draft, and you got to, assume that we're going to have good drafts because they were picking so high. This year they picked 16th, so that's going to be interesting to see what they do. Oh, by the way, Jerry Rice, Troy Polamalu, both 16th picks in the first round, so you can still get a good guy at that slot, right? But the first year for Monty Ossenfort, he trades down, still gets Paris Johnson, and then also adds Michael Wilson, and then stockpiles picks, and that's what I say his MO is, right? And a lot of the guys that they've drafted have contributed right away as rookies or second-year guys, right? You have Marvin Harrison Jr. just last year. Then you got Darius Robinson also in that first round who got injured, so it's kind of wait and see on him, but a lot of people say he's going to do great. So that's what I like. What Monty Ossenfort has done is he's stockpiled picks. He's getting guys that are contributing right away. Trey Benson's another guy, a running back out of Florida State. That's a good compliment to James Conner. So I say A because of what he's done. And then I think this year we're really going to see how good he is because now he's not drafting at the top of the first round. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does in year 3.
Yeah, Michael Wilson, A++ pick, just based off of his alma mater alone. The Rams, by the way, getting an incomplete because they have no one here to talk about them. Although I will give him credit for Jared Verse, who became an impact player last year. Puka Nacua, a 5th-round pick. I'd say he turned out pretty well. And Josh Carty, speaking about Michael Wilson a second ago, Josh Carty went to Stanford, so that's an A+ pick regardless of performance. Up next, evaluate your team's performance in free agency this offseason. Richard, coming to you first here. How have the Cardinals done?
I say B+. I say it's been a very productive and active offseason for the Arizona Cardinals. As I mentioned earlier, they went and got Josh Sweat out of Philadelphia, who looked fantastic in the Super Bowl. Tomlinson, the D tackle, but they've also kept guys, right? Kept guys that they should. Baron Browning, they extended his contract. They picked him up in a trade with the Broncos in the middle of the season. He seems to get to the quarterback in the fashion that Jonathan Gannon likes. Then they extend Trey McBride's contract as well, who's arguably the best tight end in football right about now. So that was a good move. They've got some, O-line depth as well. They brought in Calais Campbell. And they went and got a backup quarterback in Jacoby Brissett, who I think is already better than Sam Darnold anyway. So then that's the backup here in Arizona. Oh, by the way, speaking of quarterbacks from Arizona, Brock Purdy, an Arizona kid too, went to high school here. So, yeah, all the ballers come from Arizona is what I'm trying to say here. And so far, so good for the Cardinals this offseason.
Well, Frank, you're up next. How have the Niners done in free agency so far this year?
You know, not a lot of fanfare. I got to tell you, they didn't sign any big dogs by any stretch outside of their backup quarterback is the first that comes to mind. They lost number 2 and number 3. What's that? Brandon Allen goes to Tennessee. Josh Dobbs is now a Patriot. They did sign Mac Jones, and I think this is a really good signing. I think he needed a kind of a change of real estate and a different venue. He spent, out of Alabama, top pick, number 15, I think, overall. He was under Belichick there for a few years. And his first year, he made the Pro Bowl, but it was a tough one. He had 3 years there and then a year in Jacksonville backing up. They pick him up, and I think that Shanahan has a way of turning, potential quarterbacks into something special. And if you need to find out. I mean, Sam Darnold left here, went up to Minnesota, and went 13-4, made the playoffs, and now is making big bucks in Seattle. So I think that's going to be a good fit. Luke Farrell, a tight end out of Jacksonville, very good blocker. I don't think he's going to be the heir apparent to Kittle by any stretch, but he did play college ball at Ohio State with Bosa, and I'm sure Bosa had the ear and said, this guy's a player, so let's bring him in. Debo is gone. They needed some wide receiver help. They're a little, with Brandon Ayuk, who knows if that knee's going to be ready to go. Doubtful. He'll probably come midseason and not in the best of shape. And so they needed a wideout, and they signed Demarcus Robinson. And he's just been he was a great find with the Rams. He had 7 touchdowns last year because Cooper Kupp was hurt. He was one of their go-to guys outside of Akua. And he'll play alongside Pearsall, Jennings, and Ayuk if he ever gets better. And a couple of cornerbacks, Saron Neal out of Miami, Trey Brown, old Seattle guy right there. No big splashy players, but I do like the Robinson pickup. And I think Mac Jones will solidify the backup for the 49ers.
And Frank, I absolutely love the Sam Darnold, Clint Kubiak connection that was sort of in the shadows in San Francisco a couple years. They're now getting the spotlight here in the Pacific Northwest as the offensive coordinator quarterback combo forced the Seahawks coming this season. Since LA is not with us, I'll do it for them. They get an A because they released Cooper Kupp, and then we got him here in Seattle. But big picture, aside from the O-line situation, I think they hit a home run given the circumstances and the hand that they were dealt. No one expected, including myself, Geno Smith to end up elsewhere. No one expected DK Metcalf to demand a trade. So for the Seahawks to replace them with Darnold and Cooper Kupp, gain a decent draft pick in the process, and clear up some cap space, that's a pretty good situation. If you could combine that with being able to re-sign Ernest Jones IV on a team-friendly deal, they re-signed Jarran Reed. They signed DeMarcus Lawrence as well. I mean, this defense is going to be very strong next year. The improvement was fantastic under Mike McDonald this past season. I think the defense has potential to be top 5 next season. So all in all, a really good job by the Seahawks in free agency, even though they weren't able to get the big-name offensive lineman, which I know all the fans have been asking for a number of years. Finally, we end with the most important question of this entire show. How well or how poorly does your team treat the media food-wise on draft weekend? Frank, how do the Niners treat you guys?
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have not been down there on a draft day, but I will. I can tell you this: on a game day, it's usually hot dogs and delicious sandwiches and enough M&Ms to build a mountain in your backyard. So I'll give them a solid B. But I can go back to my Patriot days in the late 80s, 90s, and the aughts when I was covering the Pats. It was always a hot dog and chips. I'm told they have better fare now, that Bob Kraft is involved. And I will throw this at you. When Tom Coughlin was at Boston College, I covered his tenure there, among other head coaches there in the 90s. And that's when BC was knocking off Notre Dame and some pretty good teams. They were serving lobster thermidor at their home games. So the media would always show up and cover every Boston College home game.
Yeah,
so there you go.
A reason to do that. And by the way, the Niners treat their media very well for their actual games. I walked in there one year for a playoff game. It was like walking into a Fred Meyer. You had all the different sections and so many different candies in there, too. It's a good thing that I haven't been there the last year or so. Richard, how good is...
Aaron,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if they feed you, they will come.
Yes.
Media people, how often do someone put day-old donuts in the newsroom and they're gone in like 20 seconds? So,
absolutely.
There you go.
Richard,
My 2 cents.
is draft food any good in Arizona?
It's funny. I just want to kind of piggyback off what Frank said, because I don't know how many times there's been a cake in the newsroom. I'm halfway through the cake, and I'm like, where did this come from? I don't even know where it came from, and I'm eating it already anyway. So, yeah, it's nice to see every newsroom across the country is the same. We just see food, and we go straight to it. But, yeah, nowadays the young kids like to rate everything, right? This is 8 out of 10, 7. It's a 10 out of 10, and I even have it in my diary right here, a tip of the cap to Cardinals owner Michael Bidwell. And I'm going to tell you why I like the food there, because
it's free.
If it's free, it's for me.
Yeah.
That's why it tastes, I don't know why, when it's free, it just tastes a lot better for some reason, right? And the menu has been absolutely fantastic the last couple of years. They had brisket last year with dessert, drinks, you name it. They had fajitas the year before. I was trying to stick some in my pocket on the way out. I mean, it was so good. It was delicious. And yeah, the draft was over, and I was still hanging out there. I'm still doing some research, and I was just trying to get one more plate. It was good. I don't eat for 2 days before the draft starts. I want to be hungry like those players, but there's a different kind of hunger when it comes to draft night for me. But yeah, Michael Bidwell and the Cardinals, they do it right. Very impressed.
Yeah,
very impressed.
And I'm going to say exactly the same thing. 10 out of 10
Arizona.
for the Seahawks also. We are spoiled here in Seattle. Crab cakes, crab legs, all the fixings as well. Draft weekend's my favorite. Have a great night, everyone.